Great to get to hear there from Hazer, coach for Obey, Finch, and Taco here as we move into the second half of the day. We're going to be taking a look at Dignitas against Obey in just a moment. That's why we're hearing from Hazer. And he told us a little bit about why he thinks that Dignitas can kind of struggle against energy at times.
I would have to agree with him, though, because it is a bit odd. Dignitas, in comparison to the sets that they have against energy, they just look so vastly superior at moments, but then other times beyond mortal when they face off against energy. So it's this hot and cold that seems to be happening, and right now for Obey, all the focus has to be on trying to make Dignitas go cold.
Well, this is important here. Dignitas have dropped one set. Obey Alliance, despite, I think, of being in 4th place in the spring split, still have not dropped a set just yet. So if Obey can beat Dignitas here, they would have resurged back onto the scene in a big way with a potential 3-0 win. So the two at the top of Europe right now are going to be throwing down so we can come out with a definitive top position.
And it is still only in week 2 for
true.
our summer split, so time will tell as far as where everything else shakes up in consideration towards that love triangle between, you know, rival, energy, Dignitas. I think Obey want a piece of the pie, though. They're about to turn this into a full-on square. It's hard to make that work. Come on, man.
Good job with that geometry, though, there, Taco, or pointing out basic shapes. I like it. And you're correct. Yeah, that it was just energy who ended up dropping to Obey in the spring split. That's kind of the reason why energy wasn't even able to make it to the land, why we saw Dignitas and Rival. This time, though, Obey kind of forcing their way in there, and they're getting everything started. And you can see why when you take a look at some of the names here on this list. I mean, Ataraxia, PrettyPriMe, Xaliea in the solo lane, once considered one of the best solo laners. And then how can you not talk about CaptainTwig in the jungle, really just facilitating for the rest of the squad.
Obey truly feels like one of those teams where the more time that passes, the stronger they're going to become. And I say that purely because a spring split, Obey comes out, everybody's expecting some kind of European powerhouse roster once we see that iRaffer is going to be the confirmed support, and it just flops horribly. They're not able to make anything good work, and even the times where they do have good sets, it just didn't seem like it was off of the back of Obey so much as it was of the teams messing up. But the summer split Obey has been awesome so far. In their first reveal, I wish that we could have gotten this in the spring split. I understand why it took until summer to develop, and I am beyond excited to see where this roster ends up by the fall.
Well, now that they have kind of gelled, they've got iRaffer here in the support position with them. That was the big swap up we saw at the start of Season 5. They really do look like an entirely different squad, don't they, here in the summer split? I mean, they've been able to take games off some of the top teams. They've been having their old synergy back. I mean, the PrettyPriMe CaptainTwig combination appears to be in full force yet again. I mean, back at the start, Twig and Prime, man, if I could have known there was jungles mid to be this important, I might have picked this Obey squad. Now they're finally starting to look at that team that earned all that respect and all that trust coming into the split.
It's hard to not want to cheer for you see PrettyPriMe, Ataraxia, Twig. I mean, those guys have been together forever by now, and they have to be the core catalyst for this team also, because iRaffer's still, I would consider him still new to the team. Despite not being new to the scene, he is someone that has to finalize and find his groove with this Obey roster. I think that was the big issue he had in the spring split, is it's hard to immediately mesh when you spent so long playing a certain way because of the fact that he was with energy for so long. It's difficult to overcome that, and you get addicted to some of your older habits, and I think now iRaffer's really starting to shake them off, really starting to mold himself into more of that Obey playstyle of support, in that he isn't going to be the sole focus. He's playing more towards that utility aspect, and I think it's working out so much better for Obey.
And even Xaliea, to a certain extent, kind of started to shrink away a little bit. I mean, there's a time when Xaliea was one of the best carriers you could ask for in the solo role, and in spring it wasn't there as much. But in summer, even he's had a big impact. The God Pool's switching a little bit towards him, right? I mean, getting to play some of these Aphrodites, some of these healers over in the solo lane, I think has kind of been a bit of a resurgence for him too. So hopefully they'll be able to keep that going, and they're very much going to need it going up against Team Dignitas here, their opponents across the way.
I think there's a lot to be said about Xaliea and his God Pool too, because anytime Xaliea feels comfortable with his picks, that's usually when you see the better success performances.
And that's right, and it's going to be very much needed here up against Team Dignitas, and in particular QvoFred, who talked about how strong CaptainTwig here is in the jungle. Well, QvoFred has certainly stepped it up. We saw him at LAN have a big-time performance. He continues to do it online, whether it's on the Habwaz, whether it's on some of these other hard carry junglers like the Ratatosker. He is unafraid to be that engine that keeps this Team Dignitas train moving.
And we actually got to see a bit of a spiciness, though, from that jungle Habois. Habois definitely one of those picks that can be hit or miss, but Qvo has felt like hit every single step of the way. Even at the LAN where they ended up falling to Team Rival towards the end of that set, I still feel as though Zyrhoes and Qvo specifically had phenomenal performances all throughout the LAN. They looked just so sound, and that's going to be difficult for Obey to try and shut down.
The thing is, though, online performance from Dig, that's not what they got to prove to me anymore, or prove to us anymore, right? It's the LANs where they've kind of started slipping here a little bit lately. At Super Regionals, at Spring Masters, to me, that's where that hurdle they got to clear.
That is the hurdle they have to clear, but if they want to clear it
that's
at
true.
the LAN, you've got to qualify for that first and foremost. And if there are two teams that hate missing out on a LAN, it's going to be Obey and Energy. I think Twig, that might have actually been one of the first LANs he ever had to miss.
They've been going to LANs for a long time here, and we'll see if they can keep that trend going. The picks and bans are ready now for Game 1 between Dignitas and Obey. We'll get those up on the screen and see if Dignitas, who are going to be the first pick, what it is they want to prioritize. Do they want to try and get something into QvoFred's hands here early? Maybe Variety, try and get him into a matchup where he can come out to a really good start, but it's actually going to be some respect towards Ataraxia, banning away this Artemis very early on.
That is a strong statement ban for
surprising.
Dignitas to go for, because this to me tells me the picks and bans isn't going to be mostly about the composition so much as it is towards the individuals and their performances. Love the response of the Athena. Guan Yu could be another possibility to be taken off the table. I think that Obey has shown in the past they probably have a tendency to lean towards that, and I also think that Guan Yu, being such an ambiguous god in that you're not certain if it's going to be solo, support, jungle, it flexes so well, you might as well eliminate it.
Well, they're going to take that off the table. To be fair to Dignitas, though, they are first pick, so sometimes you do a bit of a, not a throwaway ban, but you don't want to ban some of the top stuff to leave as much open for you to pick from as possible. You grab one, then Obey grabs two, and then there's still some left for you over at the end because they don't ban them away at their first slot. So that's how you see the likes of Achilles still on the table. We still see Thoth and Janus still available. There's lots of strong picks, and it is going to be that Janus for Zyrhoes.
That's what I was waiting for, but Thoth is still on the board if Obey want to go for it. They could potentially respond with a Thoth Xbalanque.
Yes.
Going for the Xbalanque in general right now I think is pretty safe. Cerberus, so clearly trying to establish some of that frontline perspective for those team fights, and I think the team fight is going to be the most crucial aspect in the battle between these two teams.
Especially if they end up going to a more sustained direction, which we have seen be popular in North America and Europe. North America is a little bit more all in, like running the Chang'as even in the solo lane. Europe not quite that far, but we'll see if that is what they want to go with. Cerberus could certainly be good at maybe deterring that a little bit with his just passive as it is already, very good into the healers. We'll see if that does slow down Dignitas, but they don't seem to want to go there right away. Instead, they're getting the Anhur for Arkkyl, and then the Sobek, which could go over to Trix or to Variety.
And still not completely convinced that it's for Trixtank. I think I want to see how the third and fourth band shake up for Obey before even Dignitas decide which end of the bargain they want to go for there. I like the raw pickup choice, but this Anhur is definitely a heavy-handed choice for Arkkyl. Not only is it one of Arkyl's go-to picks that I think he is originally displayed, or I think that was when Arkkyl actually first started getting noticed at Sanguine when he came to the group stage LAN and was having lights-out performances on Anhur.
Like in the 1v1 in particular, like putting hands to
Pretty
people.
much. It's hard to 1v1 it, and you need a god that can afford to box early to try and keep that Xbalanque as out of the match as possible. You only really want his impact to be coming from the Darkest Night. You don't want to allow him to have a freebie in the laning phase. And so that's why I believe this Sobek could potentially end up for Trixtank, because that way they can non-stop spam that pluck on her in-bail combination.
Well, it is Dignitas who ban away the Aphrodite themselves in that second ban phase. Meanwhile, Obey gonna take away the Odin, and Terra makes it all the way down to the second ban phase, so they take care of that one. Try and create a little bit more space for this Ra to operate. Very likely going to be Prime on that one. And then they select the Nike. This is a pick you hear us talk about all the time. Is very strong, but we don't get to see it in action in the SPL very often. Now we'll get to see if Obey can make that work for them.
I think Obey are competing with Rival to see which craziest god pick they can make work first. And Nike, all in all, I like the slow potential. I think that slows seem to be the theme here for Obey. Every single one of their god choices so far has a self-slow that can be applied to the entirety of Dignitas' draft. The Batz is going to give some nice control too for Obey to have to consider. They don't want to position themselves all grouped up, which is smart from Dignitas because everything Obey would preferably do involves them staying as grouped on top of each other as possible.
Yeah, they're going to want to be playing around that Fear No Evil and then suddenly kind of all burst through space and time, so potential chance to disrupt that. But with the Mercury, with the Xbalanque, I mean, they've got a ton of late-game damage that Obey has on the table and the sustain from the Rod to get them there. And don't forget Nike's passive. The later the game goes on, the more she's going to be providing for the team.
Which only helps out gods like Xbalanque and Mercury that much more. There isn't much interrupt. I think that's my main concern here for Dignitas. There's no solid interrupt outside of their team fighting ultimates, and I think that could cause some issues if this game ends up going late.
Well, now that you've seen both drafts here, who are you willing to give this game to before we hand over to the casters?
I'm going to give it to Obey.
Wow, Obey liking their draft here, thinking that Obey Surge is going to be for real. Well, let's see if that is indeed going to be the case. We'll hand it over to the casters.
Thanks a lot, fam. And as we've got today, we're going on. I have no idea why I just called you fam. Thanks a lot, Taco. Thanks a lot, Finch. Tom and Tully here, ready to bring you the action for Dignitas and Obey. Shout out to the Nike. Nike is a character that I would like to see picked more. I think she's more powerful than the scene might let on.
We're definitely all family here, so it makes sense why you called fam. And Nike helps the family with that passive. The late game potential from this pick is undervalued with the recent changes to her Ren, doing extra damage. This is a good solo lane addition to be able to control the matchup.
Is it enough to win the matchup is the question I pose to y'all out there in Mixer chat. Let us know who you think is going to take this one. At service level, got no clue, and I think this is some of the most fun when I really have no idea who's going to win.
It's a difficult one. Dignitas up against Obey Alliance. Finding the win against Energy was both actually Obey and, I'm sorry, Dignitas losing to Energy still needs to shake that rust off, but Obey doing a better job than the spring split and could give Dignitas a run for their money.
Well, we'll see if Dignitas can shake it off or if they're going to wind up in a bad spot here. It's Team Dignitas singing on Obey Alliance.
I like the fact that Arkkyl is going to his comfort on her pick as well in the very early draft. Still leaving a lot of questions to see where Obey Alliance was going to ban afterwards. It was such an aggressive Sobek to follow. This is how Arkkyl likes to play every now and then.
Nike's an interesting pick. Nike doesn't really have any reliable hard CC. Now, one of the big changes that Nike saw recently, could we mouse over her ultimate? Actually, I want to see, take a look towards where Nike is. I know she doesn't have it yet, but we'll look at that in just a little bit. And there it is. One of the big deals is the fact that you are just going to be unkillable, and you're going to get the slow on that ultimate, even if you're not powered up. That's the really big deal. If you are, it's amplified. But just getting the 20% slow is a big deal. And for iRaffer, getting the jump in to initiate the fight is a really, really strong suit. So
the CC immunity that you're able to also get the shield. There's a lot of resilient ways that Nike can escape combat. And as a support player, it's not a bad idea to add that because a lot of supports seem to fall off in the late game, but not Nike's passive.
Right, yeah. And I think a lot of what Nike does kind of lends her to be a solo laner because she lacks a lot of the hard CC that you traditionally want out of your support. So I look at Xaliea on the Cerberus. Does this team have enough crowd control to pick the Nike?
It definitely feels like they have a decent amount, not enough really to pick the Nike considering PrettyPriMe is playing the Ross, so it's important for both Xaliea and CaptainTwig to play setup man. iRaffer is going to look for the knockups obviously, but it's such a slow jump that unless you're popping your second steroid ability to amplify the speed of it, it's not as reliable as say the Mercury ultimate. So, but CaptainTwig obviously doesn't want to engage with that. He wants to play cleanup crew. I like the fact that they are switching up the Nike and the Cerberus, considering that the disarm on the third hit of the Ren allows Ataraxia to maybe win against Arkkyl.
Yeah, so an interesting situation. Obey certainly not bringing all of the crowd control in the world. Tight race out there as far as the fans are concerned. Team Dignitas, of course, made it to LAN and fell to rival in the latest of minutes. Obey Alliance, on the other hand, completely missed Spring Masters. But seeing 49% of the crowd still favoring Obey Alliance, totally, I think that says a lot about how strong this team is.
It shows that there's a lot of Obey fans and a lot of fans that remember what Dignitas, how they fell against Energy, getting into their own heads, because they're such a talented team that's able to, you know, hit some of their abilities outside of that pluck from Trixtank, but that's the way they win their games. They just outplay you for the most part, but they can also eventually outplay themselves against Energy, going in a 1v4 situation against the Titan where Emilzy held the Titan room, doing the same thing against Rival with that drop ship. It just seems that they can always get in their own head, and you never really know if there's going to be that X factor of...
Knocked up. Beads a little bit too late. iRaffer tries to knock him on Arkkyl with the old fast jump. It's kind of an interesting use of the plan of action, right? That's one of the neat things about Nike is that jump is so telegraphable, right? When you see her starting, you know she's jumping. But you're able to speed it up with the plan of action. And having that mix-up available, I think, is really, really useful.
Could be a lot of trouble here in the backline. CaptainTwig with the ultimate, forcing the jump out of Arkkyl. Nowhere to go after that one.
Got him. Nice. Knock him again by iRaffer, who actually finds the kill for himself. Follow-up Fear to Evil up top, though. QvoFred sends 2 players towards their tower. Zyrhoes tries to clean up, but CaptainTwig able to get out of there just barely. Nice play by Zyrhoes, a little bit too late, though.
iRaffer went south, the other teammates went north, and iRaffer's going to be able to snatch away some back camps, just going for the 2 little ones, respecting the fact that the respawn of Arkkyl could punish him, but unfortunately for him, he doesn't have the same vision that we do, so he did have a small window.
Love what Arkyl's doing right here, by the way. So he dies on the left-hand side, and his mid lane rotates over to the left side. So Arkkyl walks up the mid lane, making sure that there's no nonsense. There's no split pushing going on. There's just nobody there, effectively covering the position for his mid laner because somebody else was already in the left lane. So there was an unmanned lane, and he goes up the middle lane instead of directly to his traditional left side. Just a small thing, but I think those small things are what make you a big team.
With iRaffer being able to survive that and strip away those camps, he actually backs to finish off the Talaria boots just to give himself additional movement speed, a little bit of HP 5 in combat, whereas Trixtank still has his options open, only sitting at the tier 2 version. Also different choice of relics between the two. Usually in Season 5, we've seen the upgraded sprint be the first case, and that's why I believe that we're seeing iRaffer slightly ahead as a result with the shell. That's actually also upgraded. Never mind.
All the way upgraded on the shell. And that's a nice look. It's a nice look specifically against these teams that go sprint because it's going to block 2 full basic attacks in addition to the mitigation that you're getting after the fact, which is really nice because that's mainly what you're dying to is the basic attacks from the Hunter.
There's definitely different kinds of basic attack synergy for Dignitas. Arkkyl with his passive Enfeeble applies a 20 physical penetration rather. So if you absorb that basic attack, you don't have to worry about that for a little bit. Same could be said about QvoFred. After using an ability, he has a small percentage chance to find the critical strike.
Just got to avoid some of that nonsense. So I like the choice of the upgraded shell right there. Xaliea and Variety. Interesting matchup here. Warrior... A very assassin-like warrior versus a very warrior-like guardian here in the short lane. How do these two sort of face off against each other? 2 of the newer characters in Smite for Season 5.
Achilles is going to hit you for 1 billion damage, and Xaliea is also going to hit you for 1 billion damage if he hits the paralyzing spit. A lot harder to do on Cerberus with the targeter. You have to hit all 4 projectiles between the 3 heads and the tail to apply the stun damage, but Variety could be in a lot of trouble once Xaliea completes his Breastplate of Valor. Once he gets 30% cooldown reduction on the Cerberus, you're able to spam a lot of abilities, bait out that stun.
Here on the left side, players going for it. Obey really want the fight. Ataraxia is going to use his ult. Here's a jump forward from iRaffer. Trixtank already on the run. Sprint activated after the fact, and a beautiful pillar by Arkkyl to stop CaptainTwig's advance. He clearly had the ultimate as soon as they came around the corner. The pillar stopped him.
Not able to find any picks, but still, they're doing a good job in terms of forcing the relics, that defensive sprint. He also got the beads out of QvoFred. Arkkyl was just barely able to save his support's life. Normally it's the other way around as Trixtank tries to find some safety for Arkkyl, but sometimes you got to help out the support player. It was unfortunate for Trixtank that he actually took the portal accidentally going back in to Obey Alliance, but still had the sprint for the extra mobility.
And after the fact, Arkkyl shows up just in time.
And I don't think we're actually going to be seeing a sprint out of iRaffer the whole game, considering he is playing the Nike. He has that extra mobility in the passive. As long as they get to the late game, all they need to do is kill a bunch of minions, get level 20 on 2 characters, then find that 10 kill marker. They just need 9 more.
You say that, I mean, it's funny, you said that very matter-of-factly. Are those Nike goals of hers, are those easy to achieve?
Well, as long as that Obey don't give up too much in return, if they're trying to look for those plays, CaptainTwig has been using that ultimate. When you have global pressure that's that far away like CaptainTwig has, yes, those kills could definitely be easy, especially before the Sobek gets super tanky. But the problem is that whoever you go on for Team Dignitas could escape with the portals out of Zyrhoes.
We'll have to keep an eye on that, and the kill count, of course. iRaffer and the boyos pick up vision around the Gold Fury. He'll head to base, have already bought the Talari boots. Very interested to see how he builds his support Nike. I think it's a very interesting character to be playing in this position. Going to be going into the direction of Sovereignty and the Heartward Amulet.
Probably trying to get some auras online, considering that this is a team fighting composition. Out of Obey Alliance, they have the sustain from PrettyPriMe. Raffer's going to get in the thick of things. CaptainTwig for the cleanup. And if you get that extra HP 5, extra MP 5, you're just making the team fights last longer. And with sustain to follow, with the mobility to follow, not a bad idea when you're trying to battle against such a highly mobile composition with a Janus from Dignitas.
One of the interesting things about playing Nike in the support position is the itemization. Traditionally, when Nike's played in the solo lane, you really just stack HP because of the way the shield of the ultimate works. It's percentage based. So you see a lot of health options there. iRaffer going to lose some of his health, and then even more of it, and then even more of it. The ultimate Fear No Evil shows up. There's the flip. But here comes trouble as everybody else is running towards him. Xaliea is actually going to intercept the execute coming out from Variety. Wonderful play by the teammate. And now Xaliea and PrettyPriMe trying to keep Variety underneath the tower. QvoFred for the backhand. A couple of different players in Dignitas jerseys, but nobody is finding any kills against Obey Alliance.
Everyone a little bit too low. Obey Alliance faltering as they lose their own blue buff, but the main thing is that they all survive. They don't give away any objectives. They can still hold on to their tier 1 tower. Xaliea without the Stygian Torment, but man, these Janus portals making it so difficult for Obey Alliance to find some of these kills. Very fortunate that iRaffer was able to jump behind Xaliea to intercept that fatal strike.
Yeah, that was such an important play. He just behind him, and Xaliea moves into the direction. I mean, that's a two-person play to save the support's life, both the support and the solo laner.
There's definitely a power spike where Obey Alliance starts to turn things up, but same can be said for Dignitas with this Batz that can rely on some of their basic attacks. You need to make sure that you don't get isolated from Dignitas. One bad Fear No Evil, and then everything's going to go south, and the perfect timing from iRaffer's ultimate, getting that CC immunity, prevents him from getting pulled closer to the opposition, but it didn't last long enough for the pluck.
Just had to avoid a little bit of it, and like we said, ultimately does get out of there. Only one kill on the board, despite the skirmish that happened on the right side.
And that shield health also giving him just a moment to survive. Zyrhoes going to eat one poke out of Zyrhoes as he backs on out of there. iRaffer just wanting to bait out some portals. Not a bad idea to get the mid-mage's escape off cooldown so that the rest of your teammates can follow up. Always got to be mindful about that global pressure.
PrettyPriMe making a little bit of a rotation here. He's got one little boy above his head. That, of course, is an indicator of the fact that iRaffer has completed one leg of the achievement. So he has probably the minions, I think.
The halo. That halo over his head, he's able to get some more movement speed, which is a big look, some extra damage to follow suit. And this is the first step towards the great success that Nike can provide as the blue buff from Dignitas is able, or sorry, Dignitas stripping away Obey's blue buff yet again. This is not a good look for Xaliea that's playing the Cerberus Guardian, someone that really relies on the mana, but when you already have Breastplate of Valor completed, you have a high enough mana pool with the MP5 to last long.
There's a Fear No Evil, or excuse me, the Darkest of Nights. Arkkyl going to get pinged a little bit by that, down to about 25%. But CaptainTwig and Ataraxia can't seal the deal, and so they'll survive to see another day.
12.5 minutes in. Despite only one kill on the board for Obey Alliance, there's been a little bit of back and forth between these two teams of like pushing and pulling each other as Dignitas pushing Obey behind the solo lane blue buff, whereas Obey Alliance trying to make the plays happen in the dual lane jungle side. But it's all up to Zyrhoes' positioning of how he can angle some of these portals that keeps Dignitas alive, or if they can continue the aggression.
Well, certainly not a ton of aggression just yet. Zeroing in on that Nike passive. 250 minions is the goal that we've seen killed. So far, all those minions are gone. Of course, the other 2 remaining are eliminate 10 guys as a team and then have 2 people level 20. So you want to watch out for that. Right now, players get 4% extra power and 2% extra movement speed, and we'll see that go up by 2 in each category for each of the bonuses. So, I mean, you're getting a ton of extra power and a ton of extra movement speed when you start really getting towards that end of the game, and it's not... I've seen people kind of discount Discordia passive.
Sure.
But it does make a difference.
Yes.
This one, you actually feel. As you're playing with a Nike on your team, you are noticeably faster.
It's the Ratatasker treatment where Rat has 20% movement speed on his Acorn, whereas every other jungler that doesn't go Talaria has 18%. But with the Nike passive, you're getting that 6% once you do have all 3 Halos, and for all of your teammates, that's going to be a good spot.
Variety getting solo ulted here, going to use the ult of his own to fly away, but not quite successful.
He missed the dodge roll, so he can't reset it, but the rest of his teammates not concerned. They're going to bait his life out for the 14-minute Gold Fury.
And Variety screaming worth every time, right? I mean, that is... Actually, I'm not sure. As a support, they really like that sort of thing. Do you like that, dying when there's 4 people in your lane, but your team gets the gold?
Yes, as long as that they don't give up the Pyromancer, but Obey Alliance do secure that one. Difficult to do against a Searing Pain. Zyrhoes having to use through space and time defensively as Trixtank gets pulled back in.
Yeah, the team is on the chase. Obey Alliance, 5 players strong,
nice.
Looking for Trix. Oh, and CaptainTwig finds him despite QvoFred's fantastic ultimate. P.S. Arkkyl. Going to work, clocking in and clocking out, taking the tower with him.
And he's one of these mid to late game gods. The Anhur battles very effectively in the early stages, but the mid game is where he really thrives. If he could just help himself out with that 500 gold, why not? Everyone was on the retreat. The call was to retreat because of Zyrhoes' ultimate defensively. Trixtank couldn't be in the same position to receive those portals, so he goes south. Good positioning from QvoFred, trying to save his support's life with a Fear No Evil defensively, but it just was barely not enough as CaptainTwig ignores it with the beads, finds the mage you look, and gets a shell to survive the counter-aggression out of the monkey.
Impressive plays there from CaptainTwig. 1, 0, and 2 for Mr. Knight. Love the build also, by the way. Mercury is a hard crit character, and a lot of times you'll see people build Deathbringer first item, gotta go fast. But at the end of the day, I love the selection of the stone cutting sword first. It's giving you movement speed, which is certainly something that Mercury loves, and it gives you 50 power, which early game, even if you do find a crit, you're not really critting all that hard. The raw power from the stone cutting sword and the boots, I think, enable Mercury to get out of what is not the worst early game in the world, but certainly not what he's positioned for. And then later on, Anatoly, when you build the crit, you're critting that much harder.
That's true. Being able to have a 60 protection swing between yourself and whoever you're hitting, as long as you get all 3 stacks, is what makes it pretty valuable. As PrettyPriMe uses the snipe, trying to secure his own red buff. Dignitas not able to steal away that one, and there's a lot of different options for Mercury's itemization choices. We also see a lot of hastened katanas now and then, specifically on Mask that he likes to use, and that's also a solid strategy if that's the way you want to play it and chase down those targets. But CaptainTwig is thinking about surviving more than about chasing.
And you know, not for nothing, also, like, that 50 power is a really big deal. And what Mercury does, the whole gimmick behind Mercury is, I find him, and let it be known that this is personal opinion, I think that Mercury has a number of viable builds here, as Variety kind of chases him. But here comes the response from the jungler. Yeesh. CaptainTwig is in the wrong hood right there. Variety gets the last hit off of help from the jungle and the mid and the support.
I mean, I don't know if his own jungle side is the wrong neighborhood, but only 10 to 12 seconds remaining on his speeds. Perfect capitalization. Dignitas had his timer to the T, and they called it out. They found the aggression that they really needed. So I believe he walked over some of those sentry wards on the top right mid Harpy, and after identifying that Twig was left alone without defensive relics, clean pick. Dignitas finally on the board.
Zyrhoes here on the Janus. This has been one of his better characters historically. The Dinkmeister. Likes those long-range snipes. And I think Zyrhoes also has tremendous map awareness is kind of where I'm going, but less so court vision is the basketball terminology. Map awareness is close to it, but it's not necessarily what I mean, Tolly. He sees the opportunities and he sees the plays before they happen. So it's kind of like map awareness, but it's also game sense and just this natural intuition that I think watching him Janus ult on the back by Twig's back harpies, I think that's sort of what I'm getting at is he makes that call before CaptainTwig's even in trouble.
He definitely needed that foresight against Rival at the LAN when he tried to solo the Titan, because that was ill-advised. Same can be said about QvoFred's dodgy.
And something I actually want to bring up about that, I misspoke and I did rectify my, I just made a mistake and I did rectify it, but I saw a minor league team make the same mistake. Janus ultimate doesn't do damage to the Titan no matter what. Now, the idea that it's not going to do damage if you're outside of the room makes sense. A lot of abilities work like that. But if you're tanking the Titan and then you raw ult it, right, you're going to get the damage.
Yes.
Not the case with the Janus ultimate. Through space and time goes through
space and time.
It goes through space, time, and Titans.
That's
no
true.
damage to all three of them.
Unfortunately not, but still, Unstable Vortex does a lot of damage late game once you're 6 slotted. Dignitas with a little bit of a lead as we approach the almost 20-minute mark of Bay Alliance. Still doing a good job in the scoreboard despite being down experience and gold. It was mostly due to the fact that the gold fury that Dignitas snatched away when they sacrificed Variety's life.
Right there, Shoes of the Magi, the old purple boots, so we will get some penetration, but he will be able to amplify it as well. He being Zyrhoes, of course, with the early Divine Ruin. I said before about Rival when we were on the desk, Tolly. I feel like mid laners sit there and go, well, you know, Divine Ruin, it's giving me flat pen that I can't really get anywhere else. So I want this, but if you're not playing a healer, I look silly. So thank you for playing a healer, because I can buy this for the early penetration, which comes at a premium, especially with Blue Boots being so much more attractive soon.
Well, even despite Blue Boots being more popular with the 10 power shift between both Shoes of Focus and Shoes of Magi, there's so many cooldown options in the Mage tree that you don't have to go for Shoes of Focus right off the bat. You're able to get the Evolved Mage's Blessing, the Chronos Pendant, which is already putting you at 30. And then if you want Soul Gem, that's another 10%. If you want Spear of Desolation, that's another 10%.
Soul Gem is kind of faltered in recent times. I think I've definitely seen a couple of players pick out the Soul Gem. We might see that from Zyrhoes. One of the interesting things about Janus is the fact that he only has one real damaging ability outside of the ultimate. And so you're never going to waste that Soul Gem proc. Whereas other characters might sort of, like I said, quote-unquote waste, because you're not hitting it with your big hitting ability or when you want it. If Janus is hitting you, he's hitting you for a lot.
A lot of damage as Dignitas baiting out the Gold Fury, blinking in the backlines Variety, getting Ataraxia very low. Dignitas able to secure it, but in the backline, distracting everyone is Twig.
Meanwhile, Arkkyl going to run away, uses the Aegis and the pushback. The ultimate from Ra a little bit off the mark. Fear!
Wow.
No! Evil! QvoFred with a wonderful ultimate. Arkkyl barely gets out of there. Big help from the jungle.
Ataraxia intercepted the fatal strike that was destined to hit CaptainTwig. Variety getting pulled back in. Trixtank going to get slowed. He's going to get gone. Ataraxia takes out one, but not until Variety responds in kind. Looking for a second one onto PrettyPriMe. This time it's Xaliea trying to be the buffer, trying to body block, not finding the stun, but the mobility from PrettyPriMe is enough.
Very low, but able to heal himself up just a little bit. QvoFred going to escape that one as well. Prime is still here. He sees Zyrhoes and he knows he's got to get out.
Oh, he wants it.
Oh, Zyrhoes going to go to the pool. Oh, he's got a couple of seconds left on
it.
Unstable Vortex. There it is. Aegis is good. PrettyPriMe runs away.
Xaliea.
I like that.
Xaliea was chasing him down. Needs to find some return damage. Will not find it. That Fear No Evil from QvoFred saving Arkyl's life, because Xaliea blinks in, looking for the Stygian Torment, looking for any ability. It doesn't matter. He could have sneezed on Arkkyl and he would have fell down with a flu.
That's the one, right?
That's definitely the one. And wow, just perfect timing from QvoFred, using his ultimate defensively perfectly 2 times this game.
QvoFred now looking at iRaffer. And Bay Alliance are going to have a little bit of protection teleporting in. There's Arkyl's ultimate. Fear No Evil interrupted. Goes off a second time. Here comes the jungle Mercury after iRaffer's already dead. Variety underneath the tower will be able to run on out of there.
QvoFred still had his jump available. Barely escapes that one. Sacrificing Raffer's life for a lot of damage onto QvoFred that was without the beads. If that Stygian Torment, actually the Mercury dash from Twig pulled QvoFred away from the Stygian Torment out of Xaliea. So a slight unfortunate series of events out of Obey.
For now, we'll see how Obey handles things going forward. 23-13 and Team Dignitas rushing towards the finish line here. 3,000 gold above Obey Alliance. About 4,000 almost. Obey have certainly looked a lot better here. I think this is a strong performance from a team that has not had, I think, performances that are... I think they have looked better on paper than they have on the battlefield recently.
I agree, because their win against SK Gaming, they still had a 2-1 scoreboard after that one where they couldn't really handle Half Devil's Terra in that set. Finding the victory against Energy was very impressive after that 60-minute game where I believe CaptainTwig was playing the best stead, really shaking up Energy's core.
PrettyPriMe back into base one more time, looking to finish up Soul Reaver, perhaps? We'll see which direction he goes with his itemization, but the Rod of Asclepius already purchased. Pretty much total win there. Not a bad look whatsoever. And iRaffer going a little bit of a hybrid build there with the Achilles, and then bringing the Urchin back for some raw mitigation. There's
about 4 Urchins that I'm counting, and I like this change because the fact that we changed the way the stacking works a little bit. Oh, hold that thought, though. Variety trying to get ganked, but the Fatal strikes defensively. Still under the Tier 1 tower, but he's so tanky.
And there's the pull under the tower again, and I don't think the shot's reset. 5 players Obey on the right-hand side with the gold screen already down. Not too much of a concern. Big death on a Variety there.
This time around, it's a more valuable kill onto Variety without anything to accomplish. On the left side of the map, CaptainTwig blinks in, forces the beats from QvoFred, jumps away, but there's Xaliea waiting for him.
And again, the Fear No Evil gets QvoFred out of a mess of trouble. He certainly had no business getting on out of there, but able to do just that.
iRaffer not going to get knocked back with the changes in the beginning of Season 5. To the Ren. This time, Obey starting a Fire Giant 25 minutes in. Variety still dead for 20 seconds. Searing Pain available for PrettyPriMe.
Still very low. Obey going to commit to this. A little bit early. Team Dignitas are able to steal it away. Fantastic job. PrettyPriMe a little bit too soon on the trigger. And Dignitas snatched that one right out of the hands of Obey Alliance.
They had the opportunity, they had the execution but they lacked the coordination at the tail end of it all. PrettyPriMe mistiming his Celestial Beam Searing Pain combination. Dignitas walk away like bandits and getting towers as a result. Tier 1 solo falls, Tier 2 soon to follow.
This was a great call. This was let me reiterate that. I'm fighting with myself already, Anatoly. This was a great call at the very beginning when Obey decided to go on the Fire Giant. But very quickly, once Obey showed up...
Ouch.
Look at that shield, though.
iRaffer tried to survive. Darkest of Nights being used just to buy iRaffer anything that he can, but he won't survive long enough. The execute goes through shields.
Yep. Shield does not raise your HP bar, unfortunately. And so basically, Totally, I think they should have dropped it. When Dignitas showed up, Obey should have dropped it.
I disagree. I think that they could have definitely secured it. Searing Pain with Celestial Beam, if you time it correctly, outweighs the Unstable Vortex damage.
I agree, but here's the problem is that I don't think they win the fight even if they get the Fire Giant.
That's true, but
with the way that Team Dignitas played that?
They would have still lost their Tier 1 tower, but they wouldn't have lost... They didn't lose anybody after the Fire Giant. They all still escaped safely, so if they got the last hit, I don't think Dignitas does anything differently than the way they did.
All right. Sure.
So I think Obey Alliance just needs to figure out a better way to coordinate either the way that they last hit the Fire Giant or a way that they can CC key Dignitas members to prevent them from stealing it away.
For me, it was all about the decision making because watching that Fire Giant go in a different direction, right? We do this with commentary.
Sure.
Where when we watch our VODs, there are games where I have a bad performance or you have a bad performance, right? And we'll go, I don't want to watch that because I know what I did wrong and it's something that like I've like already fixed or it's a fluke, right? I don't normally make this mistake, so it's not a big deal in my mind. I have to be wary of it so that it doesn't happen again. And that's how I feel with Obey Alliance's Prime, right? That Prime hits that shot 99 times out of 100. We're seeing the 100th time that he doesn't actually hit it. I don't think that Obey have to fix anything there. I think they just go, all right, guys. It didn't, like, do it better next time.
Definitely.
Right? I think that's one that, as a player or as anything that you're doing trying to improve, it's important to know when to not work at it as well.
I think the call was perfect, considering that Variety was still dead for 20 to 25 seconds, a 5-on-4 power play. If you're not going for something, then you're just giving a small breather for the enemy team to recollect themselves and find defensive measures. But Dignitas had a little bit of a golden experience lead, and without proper zoning, more credit to Dignitas being able to disrupt some of the flow than for Obey not securing it themselves.
You know, I think you've swayed me, Tully. I think that was just absolutely the right call. But unfortunately for Obey, their coin toss does not go in their direction. And Team Dignitas going to wind up heads all day. Left side is going to be the target of Team Dignitas, and they've already gotten it down to about half HP. In comes iRaffer, in comes Xaliea as well. QvoFred jumps on out of there, but does drop the ultimate, and not a lot gotten off of it. That could be a really big deal. iRaffer going forward with the slow.
No, gonna find the beads onto CaptainTwig after a nice plug. Variety goes back in onto iRaffer. He finds one. He's still using the combat dodge. Execute right onto Twig. Not gonna find the third one, but he's still gonna set up a stun onto PrettyPriMe. All 5 dead. Dignitas are looking to clean up game 1.
Poor choice from iRaffer. He gets low and he's put into execute threshold. The fountain's right there. Just go back. He tried to heal in the heal from Ra. Not going to be the case. Team Dignitas breaks down the door, kicks it open, and takes the money. That's going to be game number 1. Obey Alliance lose 10-6.
And the way that Dignitas was able to just team fight consistently, time in the mid game before the Nike Halos really were a factor. There was only 2 Halos at the end of the game, but it took a long time to get that second one.
Yeah, it was. That's always the issue, is that the 250 minions or the 10 kills can come relatively quickly, right? Depending on how the speed of the game goes. That's you kind of always get in the first one, and the second one trudges along. But then sometimes it feels like that third one is a really big reach. So finally picking that one up. All 3 Halos not going to be the case. Nike not able to do it, and neither will Obey. Who's MVP for this one? A little bit more of an in-depth discussion, I think.
I think whoever stole the Fire Giants will be able to get those Tier 1, Tier 2 towers and really blow this game wide open.
Yeah, I think the Fire Giant absolutely was the turning point. The Dignitas did have a slight lead above Obey, but it was not a barn-burning lead whatsoever until the Fire Giant came in. Should be exciting to see this breakdown. Let's get right to it with Finch and Taco on the desk.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Toli. And in that game, Dignitas were able to come out just that little bit better. But Tom was right. That game was very, very close, and it feels like right up until that final Fire Giant. I mean, Taco, what went wrong there for Obey?
Even
those
then,
look great, by the way. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm loving this post-game stats.
Okay.
Stream. Okay, production on the glow-up. I see you
All
guys.
right, then.
This is a new one even for us guys, so I know you people back at home are probably excited, but I'm just as excited. And post-game stats screen aside, that Fire Giant play, I mean, we were watching Dignitas the whole way through, and they had the gold lead, and it was a small one, sure, but it didn't feel like they were actually ahead. In fact, it felt like they were the ones constantly on the back foot. Most of QvoFred's first couple of Fear No Evils were coming as a result of defensiveness as opposed to being initiating factors, and I think that PrettyPriMe on that raw secure, man, that just... It hurts. I know that Prime is kicking himself for that one.
And you heard Tom kind of talking about it. That's the kind of mistake where it's not, you don't need a talk session about it. You know, you don't need to go back to the drawing board. It's just an execution error on that one, and they got to be cleaner and make sure they're getting those Fire Giants, and they get punished for it. But selected as the MVP by you all there in Mixer Chat was Variety on the Achilles pick, and that's one of the notes that I have down here. Variety's Achilles is just too much. The executes are big. It's a ton of damage. He was tracking down people who would have escaped otherwise.
And I know that we talk about it a lot too, where Fire Giant won't necessarily make or break a game, but against a team like Dignitas, you can't afford to have those simple mistakes because they are simply so difficult to recover from, and it feels practically impossible at times. And I think that Dignitas, once they had the guaranteed path to a lead open up,
right,
they weren't going to let that go.
Well, in a game like this, it makes a big difference because it was so even that now the Dignitas have the Fire Giant, they can go take those structures.
Sometimes teams can defend, and
sure,
that was the big thing, is that I don't think that Obey could really try and choose to defend, because iRaffer also was getting picked a lot as soon as that Fire Giant went down. I think there was probably 2 or 3 odd instances that we ended up seeing iRaffer just by himself, and then 4 members from Obey, or from Dignitas, excuse me, are suddenly around him.
Well, it sounds like we actually have a chance to take a look at that very play that we're talking about that really kind of turned that game around, the Fire Giant steal.
Oh, it's the sickening strike.
Wow, that feels bad when the Sobek's able to come in on that one. But, I mean, you got to have the secure. That does not do much damage, Taco, so you got to be able to secure it over that.
It really doesn't. I mean, one more time, just for good measure, to be certain. It looks like Trix was the only one close enough to have any form of a chance.
Wow, Dignitas were able to take that one there in the end. And just not quite all the way there with that secure. And you heard Totally talking about it. That's not like a 50-50 call there. Dignitas, or rather, Obey kind of had control and should have been able to confirm it.
Especially with the Searing Pain on the Raw. I think that was the big finishing card. That was their execution. That was pitch perfect play, and it just didn't happen.
Well, let's go ahead.